Now hotels are not hotel anymore. Lots of hotels become hospitals, because people, when they come back from other country, they have to take at least 14 days quarantine, and there are not so many rooms in the hospital to uh, to arrange everyone. So lots of people stay in the hotels, and it's also going to be the new standard for the hygiene procedure for hotels. For example, WHO already announced a guidance for the clean process of the accommodations, and country like Malaysia also announced a new certification for the hotels for the clean and safe. And if they give certifications for the hotels if they are qualified. So hygiene will be a very standard will be very important in the future, and also after the borders were opened, when people finally have a chance to travel to different countries, this certification or this guideline will be very important. So how can we do to make sure to make our visitors feel safe in the hotel will be very, very important. Besides the retailer, restaurants, airline industry, and hotels, the biggest impact, of course, is the travel industry. For the past 10 years, travel industry is growing amazing speed. As you can see from this picture recorded from 2016 to 2019. Every year, the international tourist arrival is growing month by month. In last year, there are a total of 1.5 billion tourism arrivals. But the next picture you can see compared to, this is a picture of this first quarter of 2020, of this year. In the world, the total is minus 22%, and in Asia and the Pacific is minus 35%. And for some countries that rely on travel industries, it's really, really challenging for them. And before we travel to a new place, we usually install some app like TripAdvisor or Airbnb to design where to go and where to stay. And of course, these companies also having some problems during this time, so they all lay off 20 to 30% of their employees. And hotels like Marriott or Hilton, they also first is the manager has to And for the big hotels like Marriott, they have to reduce the 50% of the salary of the senior executives, and thousands of employees are facing unpaid holidays. And Hilton, they also lay off 20% of their employees. And in Taiwan, the luxury hotel Mandarin Oriental, earlier this year, they also announced they lay off 40% of their employees, and then they stop selling the rooms. So they're basically closing down soon. And according to United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, coronavirus will cost global tourism at least 1.2 trillion. So as you can see the picture on the left, countries like Thailand, Croatia, Greece, Kenya, that they relying a lot on, especially relying a lot on tourism, having a big loss of their GDP. And if you count in actual monies, Thailand could lose 50,000 millions in this year. And in Thailand, in 2019, there are about almost 40 million people visit. And this year in January, they also have about 3.8 million. So originally they believed 2020 will continue growing, but unfortunately because of the coronavirus, since February, the borders was forced to close. And this year they said about only 8 million people will visit Thailand. So they also announced that nearly 1/3 of tourism-related business may shut down permanently. And that also tells how big impact it is to Thailand. But Thailand is actually doing the fighting against the coronavirus very well. They have 90 million people, but so far only about 3,000 cases and about 50 people dead. And for a country with 90 million people, that's very, very good. So in June, to save the travel industry, the government actually planned, they called it bubble plan. So they try to cooperate with the countries like Japan, Korea, or New Zealand that fighting the coronavirus very well, and to sign a deal so they can travel in between these few countries. But unfortunately, because in June the second wave arrived, so this bubble plan was also postponed. And in all this bad news, there's still some good news, which is the elephant for the elephants. So as you can see, elephants in Thailand, because they lost their job, so they actually have a chance to return to their homeland, which is not bad for them because they don't get paid very well anyway. And for these elephant owners, they cannot afford to spend that much money taking care of the elephants every month. So now they send the elephants to this Safe Elephant Foundation and to help them find the way to their back home. And since January, they already take hundreds of elephants to their homeland. And now let's take a video of how these elephants were saved.
ตอนนี้ก็คือที่เราเอาช้างกลับไปสู่หมู่บ้านเดิมของเราอะค่ะคือสาเหตุมาจากโควิดอะค่ะโควิดเราไม่มีนักท่องเที่ยวเข้ามาแล้วก็ทีนี้เราก็รอนะจริงๆเราก็รอหลายเดือนนะคะว่าจะดีขึ้นไหมโรคเหล่านี้มันจะหายไหมอย่างเงี้ยแต่ก็ยังไม่หายอะค่ะ
Hundreds of elephants are on the move across Thailand. The coronavirus pandemic has collapsed the tourism industry. Keepers like Bang are taking their elephants home to villages where they can grow food for their animals and their families.
รู้สึกว่าจะเสียงดังมากข้างหลังเราอะค่ะคือเขาจะมีความสุขที่จะกลับไปเจอมันนานมากเลยช้างเขามีความจำที่ดีเนาะ
But for some elephants, the pandemic has meant more suffering. A life chained up with little food. I am Chayot Yongchalernchai from the BBC Thai service. Come with me as I meet the keepers and elephants trying to survive the coronavirus pandemic. Bang is going home with other keepers from her village. It's day one and the elephants are excited to be out. The village is more than 100 miles away in the mountains of Chiang Mai province. It will be a difficult journey, but at least back home there will be fields to grow food.
แต่ว่าณตอนนี้ก็คือเราจะมีช้างเด็กอะค่ะแล้วก็ช้างที่มีอายุก็60กว่าแล้วก็อีกตัวหนึ่งก็เด็กมาก4 เดือนเดินไม่ไหวแล้วอะโซเซแบบว่าเหนื่อยมากเลยถ้าเขาเหนื่อยเราก็อยากจะให้เขาพักเพราะฉะนั้นคืออาจจะ3 ถึง 4 วันอะค่ะ
Around 3,000 elephants work in the tourism industry. Foreign visitors pay a lot of money to interact with them, but it's an industry accused of cruelty and abuse. Uncle Eddie has 57 elephants in his camp.
ถ้าช้างไม่ได้ทำงานครับไม่ได้ทำงานเกิดลูกก็ลำบากครับเกิดลูกไม่ได้ลูกก็ตายครับเพราะช้างไม่ได้ออกกำลังกายครับ
Thai law doesn't offer much protection for working elephants.
หลังจาก3 เดือนถ้าไม่ดีก็ผมคิดว่าจะติดต่อทางชายแดนครับจะเอาช้างไปที่เขาสัมปทานไม้จะเอาไปลากซูงกับเขาครับ
On day 2, the convoy is chased out of a village. Locals think the keepers may have coronavirus. Tired, the team stops at a river to rest.
ช้างก็จะหิวน้ำค่ะช้างก็จะเดินแล้วก็ตัวเล็กนี่เหมือนจะไม่ค่อยมีแรงเดินแล้วช่วงนั้นเราก็พยายามไอตัวใหญ่ก็เดินเร็วนะพี่
Their journey home has been funded by a local charity owner called Miss Lek.
ยังไม่บูเนี่ย
ครับ
เกือบ20 ปีแล้วไม่บูไม่ได้กลับบ้าน
แต่เขามาจากที่นี่ใช่ไหม
เขามาจากที่นี่ค่ะ
Before the pandemic, Miss Lek helped Bang and the other keepers to set up ethical tourist camps. Now, all that is lost, but she thinks the coronavirus could be a chance to transform the entire industry.
ถ้าไม่มีวันนี้ถ้าไม่มีโรคระบาดนะคะช้างยังอยู่ที่เดิมค่ะแล้วก็นักท่องเที่ยวก็ยังแห่กระจายมาเต็มประเทศไทยเราอยู่นะเรื่องโควิด-19 ปุ๊บเนี่ยมันก็จะเกิดทำให้คนรู้สึกคิดขึ้นมาแล้วก็นักท่องเที่ยวเอง
After 3 days traveling, the elephants have arrived safely. And they are having buffet right now that the villagers prepare for them to welcome them home.
โล่งใจเลยค่ะพี่คือช้างหนูไม่เป็นลมคนหนูไม่เป็นลมอันนี้ไม่ตายกลางทางทุกคนก็ปลอดภัยค่ะ
But Bang's arrival is only the beginning of a longer struggle to provide for her elephants and her family during this pandemic.
ก็ไม่ได้คาดหวังร่ำรวยอะไรค่ะขอแค่มีไม่มีหนี้สินเยอะมากเลยค่ะแต่มีหนี้ที่เราจะสามารถที่ซัพพอร์ตกับครอบครัวของเราได้
After seeing so many bad news, we still need to keep hope in our mind, as I mentioned in the beginning. And according to TripAdvisor, through their online survey and their searching engine database, they separate the recovery procedure to 5 stages. First is decline. And that means that in the very beginning, we start to receive news and concerns spread rapidly. People start to get panic, run to the grocery store, try to store as much stuff as they can. And also when the government announced that we need to wear masks and practicing social distancing, and also the travel declines, as we saw the pictures earlier, become sharply as a result. And the second is the plateau, which was back in probably May and June. Not because everyone stayed at home, the city was locked down, and so through that, the virus became cooled down, and people believe and it become safer, and that also helped the numbers become flattened and curve. And the next stage emerged as the crisis began to pass. Lockdown restrictions began to ease, so people can start to have a little bit freedom. They can go out, they can go to restaurants, or they can go to work in the office instead of working from home. And that's currently happening in several big cities. And the next stage, after a few weeks after people dine in the restaurant and work in the office, and kids start to go back to school, people start to have a little bit more faith again. Then after work, they like to travel a little bit, and so they will travel domestic. As the confidence continues to grow and people feel more comfortable traveling again, and also visit their friends and families, but only in their home country. And the last stage, the international, which is what we are all looking forward, is the final stage of recovery. People once feel comfortable and are allowed to travel abroad. And most of the countries are in this second stage. So later we will discuss. I will share with you start from the third stage, and that's also when we can start to prepare to make a plan for the future. The emerge stage. So the key takeaways is first, easing of travel restrictions begins in many markets. So people start to search what are the locations they like to visit after they can travel in domestic. And also you can see the early signs of the recovery in the dining sector. As we mentioned earlier, people start to eat at the restaurants. But when people go to public places, they still being aware of the cleanliness and sanitation. Take example in Taiwan now, when you go to restaurants, several restaurants, they actually put a glass in between seats. So make sure people, if they talk, they won't spit out to other table. Or some restaurants, originally a table for 4, now only allowed for 2 people. So that's also to help the consumers feel more comfortable to enter the restaurants to eat there. So cleanliness will be a very important thing during this stage. And 86% of the consumers say it will be very important and selecting an accommodation after COVID-19. So like I mentioned earlier, WHO and countries like Malaysia, Singapore, they all start to have this guidance for the hotel to follow. And in the future, this guidance will be a standard for them, for the restaurants and for the hotels. And the next stage, the domestic stage, which is currently that's the stage of Taiwan. So people search for the traffic. They take trains or domestic airlines and they book trips. And for the first time, but it's usually close to home. So maybe 3 hours, 4 hours driving from home, or take example in Taiwan, because we are a small island, to fly maybe in an hour or 30 minutes. But besides besides other cities, natural and beach destination will be very, very popular because usually in these places there's people and the natural environment people usually feel safer as well, and it helps them to relax in the outdoor space. So in Taiwan, if you go hiking, you'll see lots of people walking on the trail, and especially the mountains close to the city. So outdoor and because now it's summertime, so outdoor activities also very, very popular. And the final stage, the international stage. First, the international travel restriction ease and initial spike in demand for short haul trips. So just like when people first start to travel domestic, they won't leave home too far. And later, when the door finally opened for international, they won't fly uh, all the way to Europe or to the States from Asia for 12 hours, 13 hours. They'll start by visiting countries like Japan, Korea, or China within 3 to 4 hours. And third, increases in outbound and inbound travel will vary depending on destination preparedness, and perceptions of safety. And third, increases in outbound and inbound travel will vary depending on destination preparedness and perceptions of safety. So just like when people are traveling in their home country, when they finally get a chance to go abroad, they probably won't visit another big city. They would like to go to somewhere with less people where they can feel safer and more relaxed. And what this means for the destinations, what this 5 stage through their research, what should we do and to help people relax. And below, that's what I'm going to share with you. First, consumers are now looking for the helpers. And in Taiwan, in the past, Taiwan was very unknown because of political reasons. But this time, you've probably seen the name of Taiwan on the news a lot, and the reason was because we fighting against the coronavirus very successful. Starts from the January, our government already have the information about coronavirus, and they quickly share with the public in a clear way, and people start to wear masks. And that's also when the time people start to run to the grocery store to buy stuffs. And later on in February and March, because in the past, all the masks before they make masks in Taiwan, but later on because closed down, they all move to other countries. But in February and March, through the government, they bring a lot of they brought these machines and these companies back to Taiwan and start to make and focus on making the masks. And start from April, they not only offer a mask to the local people, they also offer to other countries. Even though during that time people still don't have enough masks, we only have 5 masks in 1 week, but we still share some of our masks with other countries. So in April 8th, we delivered millions of masks to other countries. And later on, lots of countries also said thank to us. And also lots of people decided to use this opportunity to show the world that even you ignore Taiwan, but we are still helping the world. So through a crowd fund, they gathered about 30 million NT dollars, about 1 million US dollars, and part of the money they use it to post commercial to post advertisement on New York Times, and it's a 4-page advertisement that who can help, and below it says Taiwan, and that's also giving the information to the world that during this hard time, although Taiwan was isolated, but we are still willing to help. And they also use some of the crowdfunding the money and ask a very famous YouTuber called Nas to make a movie, to make a short video. And next, I would like to share this video with you.
I am scared of coronavirus because it's very contagious. In most countries, this is how coronavirus cases look like. Higher, higher, and higher. It looks impossible to stop. But there is one country that put an end to coronavirus and made it completely flat entirely by itself. And no one is talking enough about this country. This is the story of Taiwan, one of the closest countries to China, but surprisingly, one with very little coronavirus. In Taiwan, only 429 people got infected. Only 6 people died. And for the last 17 days, 0 local cases were reported. 0. And best of all, Taiwan did not lock down the country. The schools remained open, shops remained open, and the economy remained open. Even sports events continued, but without the fans, because people were social distancing.
In Taiwan, people took this very seriously from the beginning, and everybody did their part to wear masks and social distance.
This is impressive, but not surprising. Taiwan was one of the first to ban flights from Wuhan, the first to test people, the first to take coronavirus seriously before anyone else did. And here's the crazy part. All of this they did alone. See, most nations do not recognize Taiwan as a country, and the World Health Organization doesn't either, for political reasons. Which means they don't get much help from other countries during this tragedy. Yet, despite that, they succeeded and beat coronavirus alone. And now they're helping other countries do it too. They shipped 17 million masks to the United States, to Europe, to the Philippines, to Japan, and even to the small island nation of Fiji. Yes, Fiji.
Even though we may not be recognized as a country, we're still a part of the global community and we're here to help. Taiwan can help.
It's easy to lose hope when you look at the world map and look at the infection rates. But at least for this minute, look at Taiwan. No local infections, no outbreak, no panic, and no lockdown.
Hi, I am Tsai Ing-wen, President of Taiwan and the first woman President of Taiwan. Taiwan is a free, democratic, open, and amazing place.
Not many people recognize Taiwan as a country because of politics. But this time, everyone should recognize Taiwan as a hero. See you next week.